Hey, everybody, welcome to the Grow Yourself podcast. I'm your host, Kevin McNulty, and this is your personal development school of growth, where each week my guests and I will bring and break down big ideas and practices that will help you learn, grow, and succeed in life. Thanks for checking us out. Now let the growth begin. And it's the concept of masterminding. I have shared this concept with people in just about every venue, field of work as possible. Some of them grasp it, few don't, mostly because they don't follow a few basic rules. That one, a mastermind gathering is not a meeting. Masterminding, well, do you use masterminding and do you refer to this term, JP?
I'm in tons of masterminds and they're specifically for certain things, different
Perfect.
things.
So then rather than me talk about it, I want you to tell our audience a little bit about it, and then I'll maybe contribute my thoughts.
Okay, so mastermind. So if you guys, anybody knows what Toastmasters is, that's where people go to get better at public speaking. So the objective for everybody is to get better at public speaking. But we all have different roles, and that might mean something different to each of us. For one person, they might want to just be able to contribute in a work meeting. For someone else, they might want to be a motivational speaker. And because we all have different backgrounds, different histories, we all bring something unique to the table.
Mm.
And something that this guy might say, I might never have thought of. And something that that lady might say, I've never thought of. And if I implement their ideas, I could change my entire life. And so the power of the mastermind is that although we're all moving towards one specific objective, we're also collaborating in a way that you can't simply do by reading a book or just talking one on one with somebody.
Wow, just beautifully said. And so, what I've encouraged many people, including, just sort of like frontline supervisors or managers, where it's possible, that if you want to learn how to be a better supervisor, manager, leader, gather with a few others. It could be in your workplace. I mean, typically you want to get out of that group think. So maybe, with the advent of Zoom and other, you can find other places. But the idea is to gather with, two, three, four, five is kind of my sweet spot, but it just depends. And then you follow some basic rules in masterminding to help us all create what I like to say that supermind, that we start to think at a different level, to your point. So you bring something up in a mastermind, and let's say we're talking about coaching. And again, and some of the basic rules are humility and courage and, keep your ego. I mean, all of these things are very important. Don't talk too much. Don't sit there like a lump on the log. I mean, there's some basic rules that you apply to, but we're sitting there and you say something about coaching. And I say, JP, I've never thought about that. So you're saying that if I do XYZ, that this will happen. Yes. And you see, we're to that point that you're talking about, we're collaborating in our thinking. But even as you're telling me, you might have an epiphany too, going, oh crap, I never thought of it quite that way. Well, what's happened is that your mind has risen to a different level. And of course, Covey talks about this. Um, Napoleon Hill,
Napoleon
who
Hill.
really kind of, I guess, coined the mastermind concept, at least made it popular. Just said the bottom line is that all of us, five of us, are much stronger than us individually. And that's the concept. Yes?
Yeah, collaboration over
Oh,
competition is something I preach in business, but it kind of works here too. And I love the idea of that third mind, right? When me and you come together and connect our two minds, there's a third mind created. It could have
mm,
more people, but that's from Think and Grow Rich. And man, that's my most highlighted book for sure.
powerful. And by the way, there is some biblical teachings behind that. It's not quite the same, but where two or three or more
More are
gather,
gathered.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's some wisdom behind this. So let me ask you this, JP. Here's what I've noticed as a coach, that um, particularly if I'm doing some like life coaching or something like this, and somebody's really stuck and they say, "Hey, Kevin, can you help me here?" Okay, so I start asking them questions and we start collaborating. We lift the thinking and they get exciting and the imagination gets bigger. And then they go away from that session and we might meet back a couple of weeks later or something like, how did things go? It's pretty apparent. I've seen this consistently as a pattern that they were up here after the coaching and then they just went back here. What does a
Yeah.
person do, JP, to sustain this, you know, this effort, this mentality, this mindset towards becoming a more of a peak performer or whatever?
Yeah, so there's a couple in there. So one of them is nervous system regulation. But before I go there, there's two selves for all of us. You hear people sometimes say there's only two feelings, love and fear, right? And
Mhm.
so, but the way I'm going to put it is that you have the self and then the higher self. The higher self, you can't access that state and that information by yourself with when you're living in fear.
Mhm.
So if you not that you're always in fear when you're yourself, but the higher self comes when you're just from love. And so with that comes nervous system regulation. Things like meditation, they turn down your analyzer. They calm your entire body and your nervous system. But journaling, when you first said that, journaling was the one that comes up. If we can journal our thoughts, if we can journal our days ahead of time, what we want, what we don't want, then we have evidence. We can go back and look at the evidence of all the things. So when you're saying that somebody leaves and they got the plan and then they come back later and they're like, I didn't really do it. There's lots that goes into that, right? Life started happening again, but I've gone
Mhm.
to so many conferences and I've done this too. I'm sure you have, where you come out of the conference and you're like, oh, I'm going to do this. And then all of a sudden life happens.
A year later and you didn't do any of it.
Right. So the biggest part for me there is to create the evidence, and that includes journaling, meditation. And so I have I can just call it a graph chart, but I started this maybe 6, 7 years ago where, and this could go like my N90 again, where you start with just one category, but I have like 10 categories and I just kind of give myself a check if I do it. And some days I don't do it, I get an X. But it's important to put that X because what happens is as you grow and get stronger and you develop your willpower, you don't like that X. And so the next day you're not going to do it. So every
Mm.
single day, I just call it daily graph chart. And there's things like meditation, journaling, push-ups, sit-ups, fasting, sleeping, prayer, whatever it is. There's a bunch for me, reading, writing, and I'll just check. And then what happens is you have the evidence to go back and look. So eventually, once you start crushing it and all of it is just full of check marks, which by the way, your brain will get a hit of dopamine every time you scratch it out or give yourself a check, then all of a sudden you have the evidence. So then when your brain starts talking and telling you, oh, you can't do that. Oh, yeah, Kevin gave you that great idea and you said you were going to do it, but you don't really have to do it. It's cold outside, whatever. You can go, no, look, I got this and I'm checking off the list.
But I love what you're saying here because it's simple in the sense that it's practical, that it's getting done. So let me just ask for clarification though. Okay. So JP, what I understand you saying is that you generate this list of, is this sort of like a general list of the things that you'd like to do or the habits that you'd like to create, and then you keep the list over a week and you just check things off. And as you said, some things you do, some things you don't do. But from where does the list come from?
Yeah, so maybe it's kind of like the N90 protocol, and then over time it ends up being more and more things. So the list is the daily habits, the little tiny things, and this is part of self-esteem, self-confidence, which are why people usually need a coach. They don't believe in themselves. So these things are evidence that you can create. And so if you do those little consistent steps, because we all have this analyzer going off telling us whatever, now you can tell the analyzer to be quiet. So this says July 2020. And so it's kind of like a mess, but you can see how it's
Oh
just,
my.
yeah. So then each category, one was walking, meditation, writing, reading, a course. I call them quests, but courses: fasting, stretching, cold shower. And so if you did it, you give yourself like a color, right? And if you didn't do it, it's really important to not do it. Sometimes there's a reason why you didn't do it.
Sure.
Let's say right now I'm training for a marathon. We just got the most snow in a week than we had all of last winter. So now it's actually dangerous for me to go running outside because normally I kind of outside the city a bit and there's you can kind of get off the roads, right? But now there's nowhere to go because there's just snow everywhere. So
I
now
see.
it becomes dangerous. So when I'm giving myself the X, it's not as bad if there's a reason. I think I'm kind of getting away from it, but basically I have another one in my phone. So that's the older one. Eventually I got digital with it, and now it's just check, check, check. Same idea.
Okay. It's interesting. My mentor, guy named Marshall Goldsmith, you've probably heard of him. He he's he's been doing something very similar for, I believe, decades. And literally, he's semi-retired now, so I don't know if he's still doing it. Actually, he moved right here to Nashville. And but his admin or secretary would call him every morning and go through this list, I think, of 25 questions. And basically, or maybe it was at the end of the day. I'm trying to remember, but it was a list of things that he said he was going to do. And so he's using it, one, as an accountability piece, but also as a constant reminder of the things that he said he was going to do. And it's questions like, did I do this? Did I do this? Was I kind to somebody today? It's just this list. And he's been doing this religiously for so many years that, he probably could just recite it to us, verbatim. But I want to ask about that, about your list, because I see it as a great idea, as an accountability piece of some sort. What other things can people put into place to help them stay accountable to what they're trying to achieve?
Yeah. So is Marshall Goldsmith, is that what got you here, won't get you
Mhm.
there?
Yep.
Okay, I just finished his book recently and it was brilliant. And
Brilliant.
yeah. So another thing I do is every Saturday I'll review my week that just passed. What did I do? Did I go for that run? Did I not? Was the reason? Why is the reason? Like, okay, sometimes things happen. Okay, I was supposed to have this meeting with Kevin. My kids got sick. I had to cancel the meeting. So it's not like a loss, but sometimes it is. Sometimes you just got to admit, I just was lazy. I didn't feel like going, whatever.
Mm.
But I review my week past. So I'll spend maybe 20, 30 minutes doing that every Saturday. And then on Sunday, I'll do it for half an hour or so, is go through my upcoming week. So this meeting, I've already had this meeting with you. I've thought about it on Sunday. I sent my love and intention towards here. And intention's a huge part of all of it. So even like you're saying with Marshall Goldsmith, him by writing that, by asking those words, he's bringing another person, which makes it even more real.
Mhm.
But just the fact that he's taking it out of his head and they're writing it down on a piece of paper, that's setting an intention, and the universe can hear that. I don't know if you know about plants, but if you talk to a plant and you tell, have you ever seen this with the plants?
I don't know about seeing whatever, but I do know, I do have this understanding that you can talk to plants and that they respond.
Oh man, go check out these videos after. I don't know what to call it, but they hurl insults at this one plant and the seeds and it grows all ugly and yucky. And then they tell the other one, "Oh, you're beautiful, you're beautiful." And then the plant grows beautifully. This is Stanford University doing this.
Oh, wow. No, I've not heard
So
of
the
this.
intention's there, right? So
Yeah.
just the similarly, like the plants are listening, the universe, God's listening,
Yeah.
right? And if we don't set our intentions, we kind of just get whatever's left over. And then we're like, oh, why does my life like this? Well, you never asked for anything, right? God told you if you good. Go
Love it.
ahead.
Love it. You're talking about this concept that I like to say all the time, that either you shape your future or the future will shape you. That either you have an intention about where you're going or you don't have any intention let's say you're making a big life transition. You're going from, I'll use my example, even when I wrote the book. I retired from the Air Force after 20 years. I had very clear vision of where I was going. It was still hard, but I knew where I was going. I'm doing exactly where I said I was going. Okay. However, I do know of many people, including those who get out of the military, who, who, and I'm not even going to call it wrong, but they just have a lackadaisical attitude about, we'll see what happens. And if you're lucky, or if things go right, or whatever it is, I mean, it depends on more things than just, that, but you end up in a good place. But otherwise, you are just leaving it to chance, and you may or may not end up in a place that you desire. I say that's a 50-50 chance, maybe less than that. But to your point, setting the intention or the vision, whatever you want, the goal, whatever you want to call it, is incredibly important towards getting to the place that you want to be. Yes?
100%. So I have a tool called Bias, and it's a framework that I use. And this is the way to get it doesn't get you what you want, but it does make it so that you live a happy, peaceful,
Mm,
equanimous life.
mm.
And so it stands for belief, intention, action, surrender. So you have to believe what you're going to do is going to work, or you won't even try. The marathon, remember I said I didn't believe I could do it that day, but I believed I could become the person.
Yeah.
So then it gives me a shot to try. If I just believe I couldn't do it, I wouldn't try. Then you set your intentions. That could be journaling, but it can also just be in your head. It could be a thought, it could be whatever you want. Obviously, if you speak it, there's something, well, maybe it's not obvious, but when you speak it, your vocal cords are literally vibrating out of your mouth what you want, and it's bouncing along the field.
Very
There's a
interesting.
quantum field of energy. Go look at Einstein, quantum physics, whatever. But when we vibrate out what we want, that's why it's so careful to watch your words. It vibrates along until it meets its match. And the more emotion that's attached to that, the more it will happen, good or bad. So if you say, I can't go there, I'm always, every time that happens to me, I don't want to ever go there. Everyone's always mean or whatever it is. I'm going to get in an accident. The likelihood that that will happen is more because your fear is so strong. So similarly, if your emotion about your future that you want and you're feeling it like it's real and your emotions are like, I'm so grateful and happy that this is happening, then that will happen too. I did it with motivational speaking. I made it up out of the, I'm going to be a motivational speaker, right? I started telling everybody, I started going to Toastmasters meetings. Guess what happened? Somebody at the Toastmasters meeting said, hey, can you come and speak in front of my group of people? I have 50 business leaders in the community, and I would love for you to give a motivational speech. Now, if I just thought in my head or if I didn't do anything towards that, nothing would have happened. So, belief, intention, action. You got to show up and take some kind of action. And sometimes that action is as little as writing it out. Write in a journal, write what you want to happen with your life. That's why the magic wand is so powerful. And then the last one, surrender. You know this. This is the
Mm,
hardest one, right?
it really
But
is.
if you have faith and maybe you don't even believe any religion, maybe you're an atheist, and but you still believe in yourself. So if you have faith in yourself, or if you have faith in God, when we look at Jeremiah 29:11, it says, God, for God knows all the plans I have for you, plans to make you prosper, right? Plans to give you a good life. But some reason we don't believe it. We show up to prayer at the end of like when something bad happens. Oh, can you fix this? What are you talking about? Fix this? Where were you the whole time?
I love what you're saying here, and I personally, at least on a personal level, appreciate that you invoke God into this whole scene because, and I know that maybe there are even some of my own Christian, brothers and sisters out there, when you talk about quantum physics and these sorts of things, that it's not maybe explicitly written about in the Bible, but these are still creations of God. It's not like you're defying, Christian beliefs or any other religious belief. I just think that I want to share something, though, a little bit more about belief and just get your take on this. So, several months ago, when Robert F. Kennedy Jr. entered into the political picture, I started just paying attention to him and listening to him, and I didn't have a strong opinion about him. I think most of it, as a as a Kennedy, he's already got a certain amount of clout. Um, but I saw this podcast, and I just recommend this for you and anybody else out there. And he talked about this, and I'm talking about two things: one, his spirituality, but two, this idea of belief. He and I don't recall if this was I don't think it was actually like a religious podcast. I think he was just talking to some. Actually, I think he was talking to Sean Ryan, I believe. Um, but but the conversation started about his walk, his religious and faith walk and belief in God. And for the longest time, I don't recall if RFK Jr. said he was an atheist or agnostic, or but I believe he just said he was not a believer, that he grew out of it and just became really not a believer, is what he said. And so, and he is now, though. My understanding is he's a very faith-based Christian. He doesn't talk about it that much, but he is my understanding from his own mouth. But I think that the interviewer, I think Sean asked him, well, how did you come to this place? He said, well, he said, again, I'm paraphrasing, that he was staunchly not a believer. There's too many things that happened that just crushed his spirit or whatever the case might be. And then at some point in his life, he had addictions, I believe, in alcoholism, all these other sorts of things. And he knew he had to change. And he knew about surrendering to God. He knew about other things that he'd heard about from all sorts of things. And he eventually said, where I started, he said the one thing that I knew about the Christian faith, and you could say this about other religions, but we're talking about the Christian faith in his circumstance. He said he knew that there were many good things that come out of that, whether you believe or not. I mean, it's sort of this concept that even if you don't believe in Christ, still take your church to your kids to a church, let them raise them, because they still are trying to teach them to be good, albeit we understand that it's teaching a religion and so forth. But that was sort of his point, that whether I believed it or not, there was a lot of good components in the Bible and in the walk and all these other sorts of things. He said, so the first thing I started doing is pretending I was a Christian, pretending I believed what the Bible said. And it moved him forward. I can't express it in the same way that he did, but I remember I just gasped at that, saying, I get that, that he couldn't get out of this rut by just going, okay, I believe. He felt it would just be fake to actually, it's almost a paradox in a sense. But he just started talking and thinking and just essentially pretending that he believed, and it moved him along. He said so powerfully, he left the addiction and just became a completely different person. I don't know what the question is here for you, JP. What are your thoughts about that? I mean, it's just powerful because you were just talking about how important it is to believe, but sometimes you don't have the strength of that belief yet.
Yeah, I'm kind of like a fake it till you make it guy, and it comes from Think and Grow Rich. And there's a thing in that book where he says like about affirmations, right?
Hmm.
Write down what you want, how much he does it specifically with money, but it's not about money. But he's like, write down the dollar amount you want, the day you want it by, and what service you're going to provide to get it, and say it in front of the mirror morning and night. And you're not going to believe it, but just do it anyway. And if I didn't hear that last part, you're not going to believe it, but do it anyway, I would have stopped. So I
Right.
wrote this whole list of affirmations, and they're very outrageous. And I've been saying them for years now, almost a decade. And at first, I didn't believe it. But what happens after 3 months, you start believing it. Then what happens is it starts manifesting in your real world. And
Yes.
so to me, that's huge. I didn't know that about Robert F. Kennedy, but you could understand someone like that, why he would become addicted and do that, right? Like you take away his family, now the government's it's a cover up, everyone knows whatever, right?
Yeah.
But the thing about God and quantum physics is I do believe that they're saying the same thing. Let there be light. It's all about light. And
No, it
even the
is.
way the Big Bang Theory and the Genesis story, if you look closely, they're pretty much they're saying the same thing. There was nothing, and then God came and made the thing. Big Bang, there was nothing, and then there was light, and it started expanding. And so the same idea is happening through all of them. But yeah, that's
Oh, I
powerful
love what you're
stuff.
saying there. Yeah, no, that's really terrific. So, JP, tell us about your book.
Yeah, so I guess Henry David Thoreau, I moved outside the city just right before COVID, 6 weeks before COVID. We moved about
Oh,
40 minutes outside.
lucky you.
Um, yeah, we got this big kind of country place. It's surrounded by trees. There's a big pond right out the front of my house, so you can see it out the window. Yeah, I wanted a fireplace. My wife wanted a pond, and we got it all, right? But when I first started coming here, when I first moved here, I really got into Thorough. And I guess probably because of lockdown, I was trying to concentrate on all those, what can I control, right? And so one of them was writing. And so I always loved these spiritual books, but that wasn't me. I've been a writer forever, but not in that style. So how can I practice? So what I did is I started this blog. And I said, N90 Protocol, here's a good example. I said, I'm going to write 12 articles and I'll call it 12 Steps to a Spiritual Awakening. And this will allow me to practice in a safe space to do these 12 articles. I released one a week for 3 months, 90 days. And then I said, that's enough of a body of evidence that I can either decide this is for me and keep going, or it's not for me. But it's not like you're wasting lots of time. That's what's beautiful about the N90. So I did these 12 steps to a spiritual awakening. I found out it was for me. And so I loved it. I didn't want to stop. And so then I did another series. I started noticing the birds. So I guess the pond, I call this Walden Pond. And this is my own personal Walden.
Love it.
So the blog was called Words from Walden. And then I went to next series. It was like birds. It was like 12 different birds I saw around here. And I just write these cute little stories of my observations of the birds. I wrote actually between the birds and the 12 steps, I wrote a whole series called Alphabet Soup for the Soul. A is for abundance, B is for benevolence, on and on. And then the birds one came. And then I went back and did Alphabet Soup for the Soul too. So now all of a sudden I got 26 plus 26 plus 12 plus 12. I don't know, 100 articles or whatever. And I said, hey, why don't I throw this all together into a book?
Oh,
So
love
that's
that.
where the book came from.
And
And
what's the
so
name of the book?
it's called Words from Walden. And
Okay.
the author is like a pen name. It's H. Davy Thoreau.
Just,
But I give him credit. There's lots of
I
credit on the
love it.
back and everything. So
I'm sure. I'm sure. And for people that don't know Henry David Thoreau, I don't even know how you describe him. I guess he's kind of like a modern day philosopher in some ways. I mean, I don't know. How would you describe him?
yeah, so he's a transcendentalist, but pretty much, right? What his main deal was that he wanted to go out in the woods to live by himself, and he
Mm.
has so many great quotes. One is that the world is but a canvas to our imagination,
Oh,
but he has another one. It says, "What about the to live a life unimagined?" He says, "Go confidently in the direction of your dreams and live a life unimagined." Oh my God, I don't have it right
no,
now,
no,
but
no. But you're right. His quotes are just off the charts, honestly.
yeah,
You know. Well, listen, I've got two more questions for you, if we're still good for time.
yeah, we're good, man.
So, you know, we and my goodness, you dropped some good nuggets here and some good tips for people. But let me just say that you we have a listener, a viewer who maybe feels a little bit stuck in their life, or maybe a young person who really hasn't sort of engaged with the world yet and really set out on their path. And they listen to this podcast, they listen to you and your really tremendous ideas, and they're going to wake up tomorrow morning and from this podcast, from when they watch the podcast, and they're going to do something tomorrow. What's the first thing they do?
The first thing, get out of bed, do some push-ups. But no, it depends on the person, right? What do you want to do? I think the biggest thing is, if we're talking about that kind of a person, is that I believe in you and Kevin believes in you. And it doesn't even matter if you don't believe in yourself right now. The fact that we believe in you is enough to get you started. And so take the littlest, smallest step, the tiniest action. Write your thoughts out of a journal. Ask God for help. Meditate. Go for a walk. Get out in nature. Shut out all the social media, the TV, all the distractions, and get real. Get busy with yourself. What do you want? If you could have anything, what would it look like? Because if you can see it, you can create it. Everything you
Mm,
see in the world, computer, chair, microphone, somebody thought
hmm
about what it would look like before it actually came here. So,
mm.
my biggest advice, I suppose, would be I believe in you and I'm willing to hold your vision until you can believe in yourself and become the type of person that can step into that vision.
That's incredible. I love what you said, and all of those things are just literally right in your reach there. Just so you decide tomorrow morning you want to step into a new career or begin the process of stepping into a new career. So yeah, you wake up, do 10 push-ups, and maybe just sit down and say, what would that career look like? If
Yeah.
5 years from now, if I were there, I mean, just any little step, like you said, go out in the woods. I might, if I may share this quick anecdote. And uh, last May, I went to Switzerland, and I went by myself, uh, but for a different reason. But in any event, um, and I went up to a small alpine village, very small, and I spent several days there. And part of my reasoning for going there were for it was many different reasons, but one of the reasons for going into the Swiss Alps was because I wanted to explore this place that I would like to do some personal growth retreats. That was one thing. The other thing, though, and I had actually written this down, that I just want to get closer to God and maybe touch the face of God. I mean, it's literally what I was thinking. So I went there and spent again several days there. And I remember after about the second day, somewhere around I think it was like a day and a half later after I'd gotten there. And I'd already been in Europe for a few days, so I'd kind of settled down with my jet lag and could kind of control my my fatigue, I guess you could say. And I remember I was just walking. It was a beautiful little village. I mean, right tucked in up in the Alps. And I remember just this tingling in my tummy. And it kind of caught me off guard. I was like, what? Where'd that come from? I mean, it was literally you know, it was not happiness. It was joy. It was this underlying feeling of peace and joy. It was at the moment that I realized that I was touching the face of God. Let me just start with that. But the other part that I realized was that I hadn't been messing with social media. The village that I went to, you couldn't drive a car there, so you had to take a tram up there, a cable car. I did some hiking, obviously, and I just realized, yeah, I get it. You know,
Wow.
I get what you just said about all the distractions. And in fact, later I interviewed a guy, it was either before or after, who's in Austria, and I asked him, why? Why is it going into nature presents a whole different thing? And he gave me this beautiful answer that I can't really, you know, articulate right at the moment, but it was just this idea of being connected with nature and peace, all of which God created. And so I'm saying all of this to just really piggyback on what you just said about the distractions and about taking a walk in nature, that this notion of getting away from all of the noise, it's really, really, really important.
Oh,
And
yeah.
you can do it. I can, I think to myself, I want to go back to the Alps, and happy to say my wife and I are going back again this year. Can't wait. But you don't have to go to the Alps. I could drive, 5 miles from now and find a place to go hike and be by myself. It's an incredible thing. Share your thoughts about this, and then I want to ask you one last question.
Yeah, that's it. Heaven can be a state of mind, right? And that's what you're talking about, that feeling of joy, that feeling of awe. And that's what nature does.
Peace.
In the summer where I go start my run, it's up a little hill, but if you can reach there at the exact right time, all these fields, farm fields, and
Oh,
the sun will breach the horizon right there. And it's
mm,
just like, oh,
mm,
or even just trail running. I go trail running, and that's my happy place because of that. There's nothing there. It's just me and nature, and we're all one. Sometimes people might think, I'm all alone in this world. You're only
mm.
alone if you like are lonely, sorry, but you're only lonely if you feel alone. Like I could be alone, I don't feel lonely at all because it's all connected. And this is a Buddhist philosophy, interconnectedness specifically, but we're all connected. And so you started off earlier talking about talking to people around the world. I was on a Zoom call one time. I was looking out my window and the moon was there, right? There was someone on the West Coast and the sun was going down. And there was someone in India and the sun was coming up over her shoulder all at the exact same time. And
That
it's
is
like,
nuts.
ooh, that's interconnectedness. But
Wow.
another thing I want to highlight, if you could, with that story, you see, Kevin is thinking about where he wants to be in the future, and then he's trying to touch it. You said touch the face of God. That's true, but also touching your dream. So let's say it's a sports thing, right? Go to the sports near your house. Find the greatest people. Hang out outside the building. Go to a amazing coffee shop or go to the best hotel. Go to the best sites you can. Touch it. In the movie, I forget the name of the movie, but it's Will Smith and he's the Serena Williams father. You
Oh
know
yeah,
that?
yeah, 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 yeah,
He
yeah, yeah.
takes them from Compton to Beverly Hills to touch it. If they don't go to Beverly Hills and they just stay in Compton, maybe they don't understand or see or know what it that's I can touch that, right? Like the one thing about I used to live in, man, when I was young, I lived in a group home and it wasn't good, right? But the one thing I always understood is I could get on a bus and go that way and
Mm,
leave. Like nothing's
mm.
keeping you there, right? So Will Smith or Serena Williams' father, he took them and he drove them to Beverly Hills to see Pete Sampras or whoever the tennis players were, just so they could be close to that greatness, right? And you don't need money to do this.
Yeah.
There's part where you can go into a library, see what falls off the shelf at you. Something, if you go to a library, and this piggybacks the last question, where to start? Go to a library and just see one of the books. I guarantee you something will interest you. That's for you.
Oh, goodness gracious. I love that. So I lied to you. I still have two more questions.
We're good.
The next question is, is there anything that you would like to share with our viewers, our listeners, maybe that we haven't talked about or that I didn't ask the question? I mean, this is just a free flow conversation, and I just sometimes fear that I step away from really lovely and such wise people as you, and I didn't ask a certain question.
Yeah, I got so many quotes that I want to share, but one is from Robin Sharma. I just finished that 5 a.m. club again, and it says obstacles are nothing more than tests designed to measure how seriously you want the rewards for your ambitions. So when we face obstacles, it doesn't mean you're not going to get what you want or that God or the universe isn't listening to you. They're testing you to see how bad you want it. And our job as humans is to go further than we think we can in order to pass those tests. And I think one other thing is like we started off at the beginning, we can do much more than we think we can. And the best way to do that is to go low, go slow, and create the evidence in your life.
I really like what you're saying there, that, and I want to interject a little bit of of a reality check here for all of us. And this is Kevin's beliefs, not necessarily yours. But you know, what you just said is so important, and that is that you can do more than you think you can. And that's such an important concept that maybe you don't have the perception of where you could be in, say, a year or 2 years. You can't imagine it because you are tracing mostly from what's behind you, what you've done or what you haven't done. And therefore the mindset that you have now is all, all comes from the back. That your parent or dad, told you pretty much all your young life that you weren't going to be shit and da 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 da. And so now you have either a conscious or subconscious belief and therefore can't perceive because that in front of you is so big that you can do that. So then the notion becomes that you, back to your advice of go low, go slow, one step at a time, incremental improvement, and witness for yourself that, oh, okay, I mean, I did do that. You see, but you can't do that without stepping forward and pushing the boundaries a little bit. You just can't realize it until it happens. And by the way, as so many, particularly sports people will talk about, and we've heard this over and over of the failures that take place, but that growth mindset. Okay, I didn't. We didn't win that championship. I didn't get to the place that I'm going yet. You see, so it's that mentality is very, very important. But I also want to say, in contrast to that, JP, that I think we have to have some sense of reality that if you are required to be, uh, you know, uh, you know, 5'7" in order to be an astronaut, and you're 5'2", you're probably not going to become, I mean, it's a limitation that's just there. Now, I'm not suggesting that because there have been many who broke barriers, who displayed, I forgot the name of this one movie, oh, right at the tip of my tongue, about the African American woman who was part of Apollo, was it Apollo 13 or Apollo 11 or whatever? And she was the mathematician that figured out how to get a person on the moon and is an incredible movie. I just can't think of the name of it. So so, but her idea wasn't, she broke big boundaries, and so she was able to do that despite what was thought to be a limiting belief. But my again my thinking is that there are certain limitations that that you have to deal with. It's the question back to what we talked about very early on is and what you just mentioned is just go beyond what you think and then go again and go again. At some given point, you'll either go, I've arrived, or you'll say to yourself, I honestly don't believe, but you have this confidence behind you that I can go another step for maybe because of age or maybe because of credentials or physicality or physicalness or whatever. I just think that's important, because I am one of those people that say shoot for the stars, go as far as you can, but I'm not one of those people that says you can achieve anything that you want to. I mean, people need to keep that in the spirit that I believe was intended. It again, if you're 5'2" and you have to be 5'7", and there's some concrete reasons why, you're probably not going to be an astronaut.
Right.
What are your thoughts about that? I'm
So
trying
when
to
you,
tread very carefully on that
oh,
because
you,
I am a believer in going as far as you can.
yeah, no, you're great. I got you. So there's physical limitations. Sure. This is something else. This is energy. This is internal beliefs. And so maybe you want to be an
Mm.
astronaut and your physical limitations don't let you do that. But that doesn't mean you can't still contribute towards that mission in the same similar way. Um, 26.2 miles. When we're running that marathon, this is the conversation and this is it. I can't fit it. How we're only this far in. I'm not going to be able to finish that. But I bet you I can go all the way up to that tree. And then I bet you I can do the next tree. And then you keep going. So yes, there's a physical thing where depending on it was, yeah, like I'm too old to sprint 100 meters at the Olympics. Okay,
Yeah,
fine. But
yeah,
that doesn't mean I still
yeah,
can't contribute or I don't know how to answer that one. I think that when people say limitless, it's there's an energetic thing. The mind can do more. So maybe
that's
I
right.
can't run a 100-meter sprint, but I can produce a kid maybe that could, or I could coach someone to. There's lots of different ways to come at it, right? And I found that quote. This is the thorough quote, and it resonates with me a lot. I learned this, at least by my experiment, that if one advances confidently in the direction of his dreams and endeavors to live the life which he has imagined, he will meet with a success unexpected in common hours.
Wow. Yeah, that's right. That is a chiller right there. That's so beautiful, you know. I do encourage people, just as you brought it up a couple times, to go read some of Thoreau's stuff. It's really quite he's really quite the modern day. I mean, I say modern day. I don't remember exactly his years of existence, but he's
Late 1800s, I
I
think
was
he
gonna
just
say
died right at the
yeah,
turn.
yeah,
He wrote
because
Civil Disobedience, and the idea was like the government. It's funny because it's happening now, right? And so
mhm.
his words are 200 years later almost still resonate.
Oh, yeah, no, that's 100% correct. Well, listen, I mean, honestly, I could talk to you for just absolute days, and maybe we should do more of this, you know.
Yeah.
But listen, can you share? I want you to not be modest or humble. I want you to share with the viewers, the listeners, where they can find you, where they can connect, your books, whatever it is that you offer. I can tell you people need to go after it. So share with them where they can find all of this.
Thank you. So yeah, if you type JP Horgan, Horgan, you'll find me. I'm everywhere. And alternatively, you can also type Phase 4 Podcast. And if you just type that up, you'll be able to find me. The name of my company is called the Next Steps Academy, so you can look for that as well.
Mm.
And I think if you do go to Phase 4 Podcast, look for Kevin's episode. I think what's it called? Unlocking Dynamics, maybe?
Human dynamics, I think, or something like this. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are the places.
Well, and they should go to your podcast because first of all, your personality is just like this. It's passionate. It's as I said, it's lovely. It's friendly. It's confident. I mean, so it's a really good podcast say it one more time. The
The
podcast.
phase 4
Phase,
podcast.
yes,
And so
very
phase
good.
4 is that plan where you go into the future where it's a 3-year plan. You did it. And it's one of those plans where what are we creating 3 years from now? But something happens that you mentioned along the way is that the person creating the 3-year plan now, a year from now, I'm going to be a different person.
Different
And so now
person.
I pull that plan closer, quicker to me.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. Well, listen, I just can't thank you enough. I enjoyed this so much. and I just appreciate you, you know, not only as a professional, but as a human being. As I said at the very beginning, you're a good guy, and to me, that means more than anything.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And also love what you're doing, man. It's so powerful. It's so important. The world needs more of this. So thank you.
Let's stay in touch, JP.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.